I heard Jim Carrey say it's risky to be seen, and I realized that's the part no one talks about. We celebrate visibility, but we don't talk about the emotional skydiving that comes after. I heard Jim Carrey say something recently that really hit. He said, it's risky to be seen. And I remember thinking, yeah, that's it. That's the whole thing. Because we talk a lot about vulnerability, authenticity, and showing up, but we don't always talk about the fact that being seen isn't just brave, it's risky. Like emotionally skydiving without being totally sure the parachute's going to open. Welcome back to Women on the Brink. So to be seen is to be exposed. Your thoughts, your opinions, your questionable life choices. Once something's visible, it can be responded to. And that's where things get dicey because the response might be support, curiosity, kindness, but it could also be unsolicited advice, maybe a weird look or someone saying, have you tried just not feeling this way? So your system learns something very quickly. Vulnerability invites feedback, and not all feedback is helpful. Some of it is just in your face. So I don't think most women are afraid of being seen. We all really want to feel seen and heard and understood and validated. But I think we're afraid of the running commentary that follows afterwards. We fear it might not be so positive because once you're visible, suddenly everyone's a reviewer. She's a bit much. She's not enough. Interesting choice. And now you're out there living your life while someone somewhere is mentally rating you like a restaurant. Being seen isn't the threat. Being interpreted is. And unfortunately, there's no turn off reviews button, right? And let's face it, this isn't just in your head. This is your nervous system doing its thing. So if you ever have, spoken up and been shut down or been vulnerable and gotten that blank stare or shared something real and immediately, regretted it, your body goes, oh my God, great. We will never do that again. So now every time you're about to post something honest or say what you actually think, or maybe be a little more you, your body's like, huh, are we sure this is a good idea? And you're like, yeah, absolutely. This is growth. And your body's like, absolutely not. This is dangerous. So we adapt. We learn how to be seen, but just enough, polished, but not too real, confident, but not too intimidating, honest, but let's not ruin the vibe. We become incredibly skilled at presenting a version of ourselves that is acceptable, digestible, and low risk. And honestly, it actually works. However, when you're only partially seen, you're only partially known, which is efficient, right? But it's also a little lonely. So here's the weird tension. Here's the part that makes no sense and yet makes perfect sense. Being seen feels risky, but not being seen, also terrible. Not being acknowledged, not being recognized, not being felt. So now you're in this emotional paradox where you're like, I would love to be fully known, but also could everyone please look away while this happens? So what does this look like in real life? Because it does show up everywhere. So in business, being seen in business is like saying, here's my work, my ideas, my face, my pricing, and then immediately wanting to hide behind a plant. Because the moment you show up, people have thoughts about your credibility, about your confidence, and about why you chose that modality. You might hesitate to post or to promote or to fully claim what you do Not because you don't believe in it, but because once it's visible, it's open for interpretation, right? And that's the risk, not the failure, but being seen trying and someone deciding what that says about you while you're still, mid figuring it out. And then there's romantic relationships. Being seen in a relationship, well, this is where things get pretty spicy because now it's not about your work, it's about you. Patterns, your needs, your I'm totally fine when you're absolutely not fine. At some point, you have to say things like, this is what I actually feel. This is what I need, which sounds very healthy until you realize that the other person might respond in a way that makes you want to immediately retract your entire personality. So instead, we soften and we adjust and we avoid certain conversations forever. Because being fully seen by someone you love means they now hold a version of you that can either be handled with care or fumbled, right? Then there's age. You know, being seen as we age, I don't know, it's not just this feels risky. It sometimes is like, wait, am I even being seen at all? The kind of visibility that used to exist was often tied to our youth and our appearance. It starts to shift, right? We know that. And honestly, part of you is like, thank God I can finally exist in peace. But another part of you is like, hello, I'm still here with thoughts, opinions, and excellent taste. But here's the deeper layer. There's a different kind of being seen that becomes available. Being seen for your depth, your experience, and your actual voice, which sounds great until you realize there's no more hiding behind performance. Now it's just you, unedited, saying what you think, which is freeing and mildly terrifying, in my opinion. So maybe the goal isn't to eliminate the risk, because unless you plan on disappearing into the woods and never speaking again, there will always be risk. People will interpret you, misunderstand you, project things onto you, and that's just people being people. But what you can do is get more intentional about who gets access to you, where you fully show up, and how you stay in your own lane when things get weird. Because being seen isn't all or nothing, it's selective and it's layered. So maybe the question isn't, is it safe to be seen? Because honestly, sometimes it's not always. Maybe the question is, am I willing to be seen and can I handle myself when I am? This has been Women on the Brink. See you next time.